Well, hey there, my name is Luke, and you're listening to the Good Folks Doing Good Work podcast, a podcast where I get to interview folks all throughout the coffee supply circle about the good they're trying to bring into the world and hopefully remind you to keep bringing good things into this world in your context. So let's get into this week's podcast.
And so today we have Kenzel Fallen, who is the CEO and co-founder of Three Keys Coffee, which is Houston's first and only solar-powered coffee roastery. You also have your Q-grader and is an accomplished risk management professional with experience implementing and directing programs and teams across enterprise risk, operational risk, and credit risk functions inside and outside banking and energy industry. So, Kenzel, thank you for being here and spending some time with us.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I remember when I looked at some of the past guests, I was like, I'm not worthy, but
you are.
Yes, I'm honored to be invited here, so appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, we're happy to have you, and you're definitely worthy to be here. The reason I wanted to have you on specifically was for a couple of reasons. One, because of the design work of your company, and two, your background is fascinating to me and something I think a lot of, as we've talked before, you and I personally offline is, food and bev industry needs folks that have experience in risk management and business acumen. And so that's what got me really interested, was specifically your background sort of outside of coffee, because there's no way that doesn't influence what you do now. So before we talk about that, what I do want to hear is, how did you get interested in coffee? Did you grow up drinking it? What got you interested in coffee before you started the business?
Yeah, so I did not grow up drinking it. I feel like a lot of folks have that story around, sharing it with a grandparent or a parent, and that actually influences some of my husband's journey. But he's kind of the one that took me on the coffee journey. And so it started with your traditional kind of, Starbucks and just that sort of coffee. And then leading to understanding more about craft coffee. And then something that we both shared a lot of interest in was traveling. And so we would find ourselves when we would travel, especially to coffee producing regions, then, visiting coffee farms or understanding more of that process. And then when eventually my husband picked up a hobby to roast at home, and then we decided to make it a business, I'm just kind of alongside this journey, really understanding how coffee can taste inherently and how different it is from what, traditionally people are used to when they think of coffee. And so understanding that journey, it really made me very intrigued by it and just appreciating its impact culturally and on community across the world.
So as your husband sort of drug you along this journey, do you currently love coffee, or are you strictly on the business side of things? That's what you're focused on.
I love how coffee brings people together.
Yeah.
I love to see people's reaction to coffee. I would definitely say my perspective in what kind of keeps me going with Three Keys. It's about the community that I see building. It's about what I see within our team, what is developing within them individually, but also as a collective. Those are the things that bring me so much joy with having this coffee business. It's not so much on am I tasting pomegranate in this, or am I tasting apple? And so that's why people will find I'm very much a contrarian when it comes to tasting notes, even in coffee, because I always feel like it should very much be a personal experience of what are you feeling? What are you tasting? And my perspective as it pertains to coffee is always centered around quality. Does it taste like the green was sourced and processed in a quality way? Does it taste like it's fresh? And then also, does it taste like the roaster roasted this to the best of its ability? All the other in between, is just kind of hey, you all can split hairs about all of that. But I just really love the individual experience that I see created through coffee as a community.
Hey, really quickly, I have 3 things I want to share with you. Number 1, I run a consulting firm called Pomelo Coffee Consulting, and we only work with coffee roasters, and we help them with 3 things: their people, their processes, and their profit. Now, within Pomelo, I also run a cohort called Junto. There's 2 of them. One's for owners of coffee roasteries. The other one is exclusively for leaders within coffee roasteries, and both of them are structured similarly. They both have a peer-to-peer coaching portion. You can add on some one-on-one time with me. There's some learning opportunities. But man, I gotta tell you, it has been incredible to see what is possible when a group of leaders get in a virtual room together and are sharing challenges, have some learning opportunities, share the things that they're learning, share resources. It's very, very cool. And so if this sounds interesting to you, you can find out more in the show notes, or you can go to pomelocoffeeconsulting.com, and there's a whole tab there for Junto, both of those groups. Now, lastly, I'm releasing a book. It's slated to be released towards the end of the summer, early fall, and it's on the framework that I use when I work with clients. So if you want to be one of the first to receive that book, head over to my website. There's a tab for the book, and you can pre-order a book now. Back to the episode.
It's beautiful. And it's important for us to remember, too, as coffee professionals on our end, not to get lost in what our preferences are. And you have to have an approach. You have to have a perspective. But we have to remember that taste is a little bit subjective, and what I want might not be what is pleasing to my community even. So I really appreciate that you're calling that out. Have you...
I call that out sometimes even for our team. Like my personality type, I'm very I'm very analytical. I'm very, into, kind of the nuanced details of things. And so one of the roasters, I had mentioned something and said something like, oh, it tasted better. And I was like, pause. It was more in line with what you wanted it to be represented based on that product. There's a palette for every type of flavor profile. Something may be too acidic for one, or maybe it's too dark roast for another, but there is a consumer who thinks that that's their favorite coffee, And so trying to not catch ourselves being in, oh, this is better or this is worse. It's like, what is the intentionality that I have behind this? And then am I roasting in alignment with that? So it's just something that I kind of nitpick about, where like, don't say better or worse. It was like, this was, what I was thinking to do, or, was it?
So, you're touching on something important here, is that we have to have we have to be open enough for our community to change some of our language maybe, or change how we're presenting our coffee or offering it, or maybe even serving it. So I'm curious for you, has there been anything that you wanted to do in coffee, or for your community, that you're like, this is amazing, everybody's gonna love it, and you realize once you released it, you're like, actually, I don't think our community actually cares about this?
Something that comes to mind, it actually is almost in the flip way. Something that I thought the community didn't care about and I didn't prioritize as a business, and then I changed my perspective on, and that is around the certifications, and particularly sustainable certifications. So for example, Fair Trade, Rainforest Alliance, and then also Bird Friendly coffee. And as of now, Three Keys Coffee carries all three of those. And so initially I was kind of the mindset of like, I don't need a stinking stamp to tell me that I source consciously. And then I found along the way that, consumers were interested in it. It was a sign for them that, a certain coffee has had its checks and balances and gone through a certain, rigorous vetting process. But then I also came to appreciate even the partnerships that can be had with these organizations. We've had really positive relations. For example, Fair Trade, they've helped to publicize our products on their platforms. Bird Friendly has been awesome and helped to match us up with the Houston Zoo here in Houston in terms of getting our coffee in front of folks. And so again, going back to that whole, what I love about coffee, again, is the community that gets built around that, and that connection and that partnership. So that's one of the things that I realized, like, wow, I was wrong, and being defensive of the need for certifications. I see it as much more than just the seal on the bag. It actually stands for and represents a whole lot more, and that's something I kind of changed my stance on along the way.
It's interesting. I was literally having a conversation yesterday with the roaster about the necessity of having, Fair Trade Organic, Rainforest Alliance, and I appreciate your perspective, because I think that specifically in specialty, it's very easy for us to look down our nose at certifications, because they are cost prohibitive in some ways for smaller producers to get certified, and it creates a layer of complexity for roasters. But to your point, you had to listen to your community and realize, oh, they actually do care about this, and we do need to be cognizant of that for our community and what they need.
Yeah. I think now something that we're newish in terms of the certifications, but one thing that I really want to reinforce, because this is something that's really important to us at Three Keys, but is around the education of it. Because I want to say, hey, we have some certified coffees. This is what that certification means. However, that it's not accessible for everyone, and here's why. And to explain exactly what you pointed out, which is a very, very great observation, that it's cost prohibitive. There are a lot of barriers to that, and it doesn't mean that a coffee without a certification has not met a lot of that criteria. They just may not have been able to pursue getting that. And so that's something that we're trying to prioritize a bit more, is consumer education, also as well as education even within our team about a lot of these misconceptions and misunderstandings throughout the whole coffee supply chain. There are tons of them, and we're refuting them and disputing them on a daily basis, it feels like.
You have to, because there is a lot of misconception, and truthfully, a lot of the misconceptions, in my opinion, come from a place of customers want to know that what they're spending their dollars on is going to do something positive, and not negative. They're trying to be conscious, and so, but we do have to take on that responsibility of educating them of what does it mean for a producer to have that or not. And interesting. So you're not exclusively fair trade, rainforest. Okay, got it. So, so for you, how do you pick and choose coffees then? If that's not exclusively, that's just a couple of your offerings. Do you have a structure for how you source?
The best way that I can describe it is about range and trying to provide an assortment of options. Like I was mentioning earlier, where they're different. One roast could be a person's favorite roast, and then another person is like, I hate that, right? And so what we wanted to do is to just provide a lot of options so that people could find whatever their niche or interest was within the Three Keys coffee lineup. It results in us having a lot of products and a lot of SKUs, but that's our deliberate choice in order to make sure that what we are providing is something that is inclusive as much as possible, accessible as much as possible. So we have a range of price points, we have a range of roasts, we have things that we have different, we'll have an anaerobic, natural, all of the experimental processing, and then we have dark roast Brazil. We really try to celebrate that wide variety that exists within coffee, and also the coffee consumers who choose to purchase it.
For you, as we think of how you structured your business initially, and with solar power and being conscious of the earth, was that something that you was set out to do initially, was to have fully solar powered facility, or was that something that happened organically during the process of opening?
Definitely happened organically. I think I can speak to, there's a lot of things you don't get as a consumer until you're then on the other side as an owner, and as a business owner and an entrepreneur. And so I realized along the way, a lot of the ways that occurs throughout what we're doing, just the whole manufacturing process, and we try to minimize that where possible. But my husband's background as an engineer also influenced a lot of this too. We've both worked in the oil and gas industries, and very mindful of how the impact of that has been felt on the earth. And so that fed into a bit of our, okay, how can we make sure that we're being, responsible stewards of the environment with our role in being coffee business owners. And so one thing that we were also doing for a while, paused it, we do plan to pick it back up, but was chaff recycling. So there's a farm where we would take the chaff and they would use it for topsoil composting, very nitrogen rich, nutrient rich. And so, seeking ways that we can take what we have and be renewable with that. And so we're really grateful that Oat Milk Company had the Big Idea Grant. And so that then gave us the opportunity to apply and say, hey, we want to go solar. Can you help to support that? And so they had actually approved the project. And so, that's something for us, because it was not as costly for us to endure or bear that burden, that really helped us to be able to implement that at the roastery. But yeah, it's like you find opportunities that come your way, and then you pivot accordingly, and you try to maximize what you're able to do within your business. And that's just kind of how we take things, like day by day, year by year. We're still trying to figure all of that out. But
I would imagine that the amount of power that you needed initially is probably not as much as you need now. And so how did you plan for scaling your need for power? Did you just go into it saying, we're going to say, well, we think we need X amount of watts, or whatever the correct terminology is, to store that, and we're going to double or triple that so we have some excess? Or how do you plan for increased demand?
Yeah. So it's interesting. We were able to see a lot of the data on, what we're harnessing. And when we picked a plan, we wanted to make sure that we picked, a plan in which we can actually take that and even put that back on the grid. And so we're able to see, especially within, summertime, and when we have a lot of the sun, that we're actually harnessing more than we're producing even now. I think, being in Texas, it's a lot of sunny days, and end up having a lot. But from an energy perspective, I'm not sure if it's veered that much from when we started. I can say that as a business, our roastery, we're already kind of bursting out at the seams. We have our eyes on something even bigger, and then in doing so, and especially we're thinking about getting an even bigger roaster, we want to make sure that is electric. Right now we have 2 Giesens, and so those being, gas powered, something for when we do our next bigger roaster, we got our eyes on getting something that's electric. But I'm sure that'll take a lot more energy demand as well. We'll see.
Fascinating. I would love to hear more about the outcome of that once you transition your roasters fully to electric. But fascinating. Makes sense. So then, just out of curiosity, then, are your solar panels on site, or are they like at a solar farm somewhere?
They're on our roof, so they're right on site, and then we have a battery on the side that stores everything. What's really cool, so being here in Houston, it's also allowed us to continue maintaining our operations even at times where maybe there's power outages because of that being harnessed and stored. And there's been at least 3 or 4 times that I can think of that the power went out and we were able to keep roasting. And one of those for after Hurricane Beryl, we actually just opened it up and just said, hey, if you guys want to come and like get some free coffee, we're here. And so just was brewing some coffee with the power as long as we had power. It started to get really hot because because the solar backup can't also power the AC. It's too much, right? So it's still pretty warm, but hey, we had lights, had electricity, had the ability to roast and brew, so we were able to keep things going.
I love that. That's awesome, and it's also another win for going solar as well. So makes total sense. Thanks for sharing that, because I don't know of hardly any roasters right now that have made that leap. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
As you think of your business relating to music, it's obviously in the name, it's directly related to music. Are you a musician as well, or is it just your husband?
No, I played the violin for about 6-7 years. My husband played the trumpet. That's where the name comes from, the 3 keys, the vowels of the trumpet. Music was very much a part of our story. Just, when our relationship started, I grew up very, very deeply immersed in a lot of different musical genres, as just like a listener. I'm an only child. And I remember I would just put on my mom's old albums on a turntable, so those things are still very core to us. And that's where we love for 3 Keys to be this celebration of just, creativity and innovation and culture. And we like to tell that story specifically through music and, through the playlists that we have that match to each of the coffees.
How long does it take you to build each playlist for each of your releases?
Well, so the good thing is that a lot of it was in the early stages when we were starting the company. So it's kind of like once we set on a good playlist, we didn't tweak it too much. I want to give credit and shout outs to a couple of folks. One, and unfortunately he's since passed away, but Jared Shield was a bandmate of my husband's, and he was also a professor of music at the Berklee School of Music. He helped to put together a lot of those early playlists. And then we also have someone on the team. His name is Razzo. He is a trombonist with a band called The Suffers, and he has actually had a part in some of our playlists. Sometimes we'll get guest curators for our playlist. So I'm probably sound like a broken record, I guess pun intended here. But again, I love the way that we've been able to just create this community and allow the things that we do as a business to be able to have folks have some involvement in that. And so even as it comes to the playlist, that's not something that we want to just hold to ourselves. We want to let others in on that whole process if they're interested in doing so.
What has been the response to those playlists? I'm assuming your blend playlists probably all stay the same. Maybe single origins might get updated. Is that how it's structured? How is it structured internally?
So they're really uniquely tailored to what we wanted the taste profile to be for that coffee. Sometimes it is more of a representation of the origin of the particular coffee. So for example, Congo Square it's named after the square in New Orleans, which is considered the birthplace of jazz. But we also it's sourced from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And so it tells this whole story. And so what we do with the Congo Square playlist is we make it very New Orleans, second line jazz, that type of sound, but with also some reminiscent, of the African beat drums and things you may find in there as well. And so very intentional with the selection of that in order to tell the same story that we wanted to tell with the coffee. Kind of wanted that to be conveyed with the music. Our Brazilian one, it used to be, we used to call it Bossa Nova after the jazz form. And so it's very Bossa Nova jazz in that one. And the playlists are really fun. I think it is a very necessary complement to the Three Keys experience. That's what we seek to do, is to create a multi-sensory exploration of coffee. And so it's about the sound, it's about the taste, it's about the visuals that you're getting from the bags and the designs from that. We really just wanted to, invoke the senses with our coffee experience.
Beautiful. And it's a way to differentiate yourself, of course. And it takes work to put those together and to be conscious about those. But it is something that you can just share freely with folks that buy your coffee. It's a really wonderful engagement that isn't an accessory to the packaging or something you have to sign up for. It's just embedded in the product itself, and it's just really beautiful. So
thank you.
Love that. Very cool. So you own the business with your husband, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I started my design firm with my partner, and she's no longer involved in the business. And it's tricky whenever you work with your partner. And so I'm curious, how do y'all divide roles and responsibilities, and how do you keep sort of a healthy dynamic between the two of you?
Yeah, I think so. It's important to know. So Tio and I have been married for 13 years now. And before starting Three Keys, we had been parents at the time of 2 children. Now we have 3. And so, we had a lot of practice with working as a unit from a household, but then also with parenting. So I think having that prior really helped us to know how to collaborate pretty well with each other and understand, okay, maybe you've got like a lot in your mental load plate right now. Let me be cautious about, what else I add to that. So some of those aspects we communicate very effectively with each other. But I also want to say, Tio and I are very complementary in terms of what we bring to the business. Tio is very big picture with the vision and with a lot of the, the high level view. It's almost, I always say, he has a lot of the ideas And then I'm the one figuring out, okay, how do we execute that efficiently, you know, in a way that we can maximize our results? Like, how do I'm a maximizer. I'll take an idea and then I figure out a way to do that in the most like optimal way that, you know, minimizes cost, maximizes potential revenue, maximizes potential impact, all of that. And so that really plays into how we have built Three Keys, and that, you know, I'm all about the details and he's big picture. And so we never end up really stepping on each other's toes along the way because we have a lot of that alignment.
Each of you have a clear understanding of your own gifts and what you bring to the table, and you're not trying to jump over and take the other person's roles and gifts.
He is very much the roaster, the technical person. You know, where I'm at right now, it's upstairs from where our coffee shop is. And so we were down there and we were chatting about one of our coffees. It's called Cumbia, which was pretty acidic and just blink wide. You know, like Tio's like, well, he's like, keep in mind, it's a double wash. So, you know, it's actually going to probably be more akin to what you get from like Kenyans in the similar processing. And then both the barista and myself are having this kind of epiphany. I'm like, that's like an excellent analogy and a way to kind of like bring it home, because now I'm getting how this is really aligned with Kenyan. And that stuff just comes naturally for like all, you know, the science behind the coffee and how it's roasted and how it's processed and all of that. And that's something that I'm not the roaster. I think in a bind, if you throw me in front of the roaster, I'll figure out how to get through the curve and make something that, you know, comes out pretty decent. But I know that that's not my lane. That's not my area. Where I'm best served is in helping to, you know, keep everything going, keep a great team, keep the business operations going. I mean, I wear so many hats. If I had to, you know, I'm technically on paper CEO, right? But there's marketing, public relations, HR, information systems, all types of stuff. Also means that in a shortage, I'm packaging, I'm boxing up stuff, I'm doing deliveries, I'm not above any of that, right? So there's a bunch of those hats, but yeah, we definitely know where each of us is best served. And that's how I like to build our team too. My team probably gets sick of me saying, like, I'm always checking in, like, how are you feeling? How are things going? Is there something we can do to adjust? You know, because I want people to be in places where they will thrive and where they can be their best selves. And yeah, I think it just really, it's the way that we want to operate the business and also how we want to operate ourselves within the business.
You said something about checking in regularly with your team, and you're always sort of assessing, is this the right fit? Is this the right structure? Is this the right approach here? What do you have a format or a sort of formula that you approach those check-ins? And I'm asking because I'm doing this right now where I'm actually reevaluating what our check-ins look like with my teammates, because when you do it regularly, it can get kind of old. And so I'm curious for you, how do you keep those sort of interactions fresh and creating an environment to where it doesn't become repetitive, but it opens up the space for them to think about their role maybe differently?
Yeah. Sometimes I'll ask the question, I'll ask them to finish the sentence, you know, this place would be an even better place to work if we what? Or, you know, or if we had what? And then I try to get them to, I'm like, don't think too hard about it. Give me your blink instinct. Like, what is it? And sometimes it's little mundane things. Like I remember once, I didn't realize with the cafe folks, it's like, well, can we get an ice bucket? I was like, oh my gosh, that's so easy. Like you could get a new piece of small equipment or machine or anything like that. That's a simple thing. But it's even been big things such as, you know, one of my employees was like, I really think that we should have healthcare. And I agree with them. And I said, okay, I don't know how to do that right now. Give me some time to figure it out. Did some research, figured out some providers, and now we're offering health benefits. We're paying for, and we pay 50% of the premiums for both the employee as well as any eligible dependents. Because we're all about, like, if you are not healthy and whole, then you are no good to the business or our customers or anyone else. And so if that's something that we can do that's within our control, then yes, I want to hear, how can I make this a better place for you? How can I help you to feel like you can be your best self while you're here? So, but I'll say, I think going back really to your question, I've tried formal assessments. I've tried 360 assessments, meaning like having the peer or, the team review each other and kind of talk about that. But I really think the biggest takeaways that I've gotten and the best information has just been from informal conversation that doesn't feel so planned or, so serious, like where I'm able to just have a conversation and listen to what the team is needing.
Commend you for that, because that's, yes, the reviews are important, the 360s, the structure is important, but as a leader, it's important that you're actually always listening and always open to those conversations and those sort of feedback that they're giving you when they're not thinking about it, when it's not posed as, how do we make my business better? When it's posed as, how are you doing? And it comes out, I'm having trouble paying for my, medical bills or what have you. That's the harder one to do, is to be cognizant and be open there. So I want to just commend you for that, because that's where the real change happens.
Yeah. And like I said, it was like, there's so much I'm figuring out as an entrepreneur along the way. Like that's one of the things that I'm like, I don't know how to, I'm not offering it because I just like don't want to. It strictly is like, I have to sit down and do the research on how do I even begin to offer this health insurance or medical plans? Where do I sign up? What do I do? There's so many things that I have had to learn along the way. Even I know something that's, in your area and important to you, design stuff. 3-4 years ago, I didn't know how to get into Adobe Illustrator and do anything, but out of necessity, it's like, all right, now I know I can add Adobe Illustrator to one of the things that I can at least somewhat navigate. It's just, I think it's prudent for business owners and entrepreneurs to try to just figure out as much of that, put as much as we can in our toolbox and wheelhouse. And if for no other reason that it allows us to just be a bit more informed and equipped to help the next person. That's something that my husband and I both take a lot of pride in, is that what we have created, we really love to see that information passing along, like paying it forward. We've got a few folks on our team who have entrepreneurial interest, and we are totally supportive of that and giving opportunities. It's funny, downstairs, again, like I said, at our shop, this just happened like maybe 30 minutes ago. There were a couple of folks that were there. They were talking to one of our baristas, and they really commended her on the drink that she made. And they're like, do you do your own thing outside of this? They didn't know that my husband and I are sitting there and we're the owners, right? And she's talking about it. She's saying like, well, I do have interest. I have a coffee company. I want to do my own roasting company, all of that. And we're totally fine with that. And I think in some other spaces, it's like, no, you are here to represent Three Keys. Don't you dare talk about your own thing. But I realize that coffee is such a huge pie. We do not have to compete against each other in that sense. We don't have to block other people's opportunities. And so anyway, long story short, they realized we were the owners, and they're like, it was just a really friendly thing. But my husband summed it up great. He's like, I love the fact that like what we created here just can create opportunity and inspire and help someone else to kind of want to do their thing. And he's like, one day I feel like she's going to be on this side and talking about the next person and being able to say, yeah, I'm doing what I can to help support their vision. So yeah, that's kind of our philosophy and mindset with that sort of thing.
Important.
You said, where did I learn that? I don't even know if like that's something that, what? Let me think about that. I think that I was given opportunities from people, and that I think that influence, it really was a pay it forward thing. So I think that it's hard. I laugh because it's like, it doesn't feel like something you learn, right? It kind of feels like something that, you know, some people just have a natural inclination to try to give back and do more, and some people don't. But I do think maybe it is a way that we do learn that behavior, and it's through being a recipient of that. And I've definitely been fortunate, and this is more of my corporate career, right? But having worked for and worked with some very amazing individuals who created spaces, created opportunities for me, allowed me to use my voice, allowed me to have opportunities to step into leadership. And I realized that it doesn't just amplifies the entire organization. I remember very early in my career, one of my bosses saying, you know, your job in any role that you have is to make your boss look good. And that can be done by allowing some of the people on our team to have their own platform to shine, because it's like, hey, if you have had some role in helping to nurture this talent, that is a positive reflection of you as a leader. It doesn't mean that they are, you know, overstepping or, you know, and so I think having people who had that very healthy and positive attitude around creating opportunities for folks on their team is what has influenced me to then want to do the same thing for my team.
Yeah, it's something that it's not impossible to do if somebody hasn't done that for you, but it becomes easier when you look back on your career and see those mile markers of, oh, so-and-so gave me an opportunity, so-and-so encouraged me to, you know, do my side project or what have you. And I think it's something that in coffee we can kind of become a little bit like, we want to put up our own fences around our kingdom, and it works against us in the long run. And while it can be painful to lose a good person, they are going to speak positively of you if you have, on the next stage of their journey, if you have given them those opportunities. And it only benefits your brand to provide them opportunities. I'm not saying that you you know, put yourself in a compromised position or don't look out for your own business, of course, but giving those opportunities is a net positive thing for your own business.
Yeah.
And it's never come back to bite me, is what I'm trying to say.
I couldn't agree more. And that's why we really reinforce training and development of our staff so much. It reminds me of, there's this quote where it's like, you know, what if I train my employees or pay for their training and build them up and then they leave? And then the response is like, well, what if you don't and they stay? What does that do for you? You know, it's like, well, now I have this like stunted sort of talent and that I'm not able to grow as a company. So it really just, it only helps everyone involved. I think coffee, and I've seen this in my banking world too, and I've learned this lesson that it's a revolving door as well. Just because you leave doesn't mean, you know, you can't then come back through that door for something in another capacity. We have 2 employees in our staff who worked for us in the past. One moved to another city. One decided to go work at a shop because we didn't have a shop. And anyway, and then they came back, you know, and so it's like, it's about having those positive relationships because you never know when you'll need to cross that bridge again with someone or when they can be a helping hand to you. And so it's just only prudent for us to really try to support the folks who we feel like are really in support of our vision and mission as a company.
And I mean, yesterday somebody had reached out to me and they are starting a roastery and they need a place to toll roast out of. And I immediately texted one of my old bosses who, when I left their company, it's like affirmed me going on to the next place and understood it was the right place for me to go next. And I texted him yesterday and I was like, hey, this person's looking for someone to toll roast out of. The point that I'm getting at here is that, like, because he gave me sort of a blessing as I was leaving, I'm gonna work his direction every chance I can. I passed on a few accounts to them even since then. So all that to say is it doesn't, treating your people right doesn't come back to hurt you. Back to hurt you. Yeah. Okay. So as we kind of wrap up, we didn't really touch on the beginning of Three Keys yet. So how did you start Three Keys? And also, was it a pandemic baby, or had you been working on it prior and just happened to be 2020?
Yeah, we worked on it prior, and the timing just was, just couldn't have been more perfect, I guess. In that we, on paper, started Three Keys in August of 2019. During that time frame, we're building up the website. We are getting our ducks in a row in terms of the branding and the packaging and putting all of those elements in place. I'm also working a very demanding job. I was in the banking world. I was an SVP for enterprise risk, and we were in the middle of a merger, and I was one of the leads for bringing together a whole risk management function. So there was a lot going on, but we were like, we'll get everything together when we can. My husband and I thought it would be something that we just did on the weekends as like a farmer's market sort of thing, something we did as a family. We didn't think it would be what it is now. But so then, by the time we were ready to kind of turn the lights on, so to speak, on our website, that was in the pandemic, and actually saving the commute time of having to get to the office and all of that, it actually gave us a little bit more time to devote to Three Keys while still being able to fulfill our professional responsibilities in our day jobs. So it allowed us to do a little bit more during the pandemic. But I remember very vividly, it was around the time Sprudge was looking specifically for Black-owned coffee roasters to support, because there was, this was right in the middle of, George Floyd and a lot of the campaigns to buy Black. And we had not yet started. I think we were just had opened up our website maybe about a few days prior. And I remember sending a DM to Sprudge, and I was like, hey, we're brand new. And I said, but if here's our website, you take a look. If you think it's something that's interesting, love to be considered on the article that you're seeking roasters for. And so they ended up looking at our site, which was at that point already very done up, and we had everything put together, because now this takes us to about June of 2020. And so that they ended up putting us in the article. And what was really cool is that, when you're starting a business, usually your first customers are like friends and family. And I think we had one friend who had purchased, and then our very next order was a complete stranger. We didn't know, because it came from Sprudge. It came from that publicity. And that's why I say it was a really interesting and exciting time, because with people being home, having shops that were closed, folks were figuring out how to be baristas at home. It was that time where people were seeking roasters that they could purchase from and brew at home. And also then having this additional publicity and spotlight from Sprudge, of all places, it really helped to kind of launch us a bit very early on. And then after that, the product just kind of spoke for itself, and the branding and the design and everything, all of that came together, and we just would get all of this positive feedback about the coffee and about what we were doing. And so I think that's what's continued to sustain us, right? But our initial really kind of pop is really attributed to that shooting my shot with Sprudge, our first week of business.
Good for you for doing that, and good for you for reaching out, because who knows, if you wouldn't have done that, what would have happened. And I would also say too, you said that your whole website was fully fleshed out at that point. You had your branding completed. It speaks to how important that is to be recognized, and how I know sometimes it can, as somebody on the design side of things, I understand that design isn't everything, but it does legitimize you early on. And so I think a lot of young roasters miss that and don't make the investment there first. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that. So I know you said you can now navigate Adobe Suite, but did you do all of the branding then?
No, I cannot take credit for that. We worked with a really awesome company called Field of Study Design, and what I love is that they understood the jazz part of it. We wanted the branding to feel reminiscent of the old Blue Note era albums, like that Reed Miles design look of the Blue Note albums. And so they got that vision completely. So they are who I continue to thank for that initial branding and being able to take a lot of what Tio and myself wanted to convey, and then put that into a package. And then from there, you know, we've kind of tweaked some things, but I do think it's very important to work with designers who understand especially if you have a very unique vision as a brand, for folks who really get that and can translate that into a package that reflects what the intention is.
So as we sort of come to a close here, we always like to give a space to hear what sort of books have impacted your life, or maybe a professor or something of that nature. Is there any books that have been really formative on your entrepreneurial journey?
I'll acknowledge, as a mom of 3, a lot of the books I've been reading lately are things like Pete the Cat and children's books. And so those surprisingly have a lot of really amazing adult life lessons in them. Like one of the ones that I love that, you know, it really still moves me is like the places you'll go, the Dr. Seuss one, and just how the world has all of these possibilities. And I think it's a really inspirational way to look at anything that we're doing is, you know, to just think you're going to have failures, you're going to have successes, you're going to go here, you're going to go there, you're going to be confused and not know what you're doing, and then you're going to have total clarity, you know, and the book just kind of summarizes all of that. So that's a fun one that comes to mind for me. But I also like things like, for example, the How I Built This podcast. I think it's kind of my dream to one day we'll build 3 Keys big enough that maybe we can be on that podcast as well. But yeah, the Guy Raz, How I Built This is a great one. But I'll say a lot of what I've been reading lately is more from a personal nature. So one is called like Outlive, it's like the science and art of longevity. One of the things, or a few of the things in there, I mean, it's talking about like just different like diet practices and nutrition, but it's also just the importance of sleep, the importance of reducing stress. And I have to say, as an entrepreneur, those are the things top of my mind. And what I always recommend for folks, like, do what you can. Don't try to miss out on sleep. Don't try to, you know, do too many things and stress yourself out. Because in playing the long game, and again, that goes for us as individuals personally, but also if we want to see longevity in our businesses, I think we have to take the times for rest, and we have to be able to de-stress and only focus on the tasks and projects that are really influential and really will get us to where we want to be years from now. So yeah, those are the ones that kind of come to mind as being most, I think, influential in how I try to operate and lead 3 Keys.
You said something there around essentially putting your focus in the right place for the benefit of the business. And do you have a framework that you work within to determine whether or not something is aligned with your business vision?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I should unofficially, sort of, is how I'll answer.
What's the unofficial version?
I want to like make it's kind of, will this matter 3 to 5 years from now? What we're doing going to matter at that point? If not, maybe we're getting too weedy in the details of something, and maybe this isn't something that I either need to worry about or I even need to prioritize at this time. But other things, like for example, we say no to a lot of things because they aren't in line with our. And so making sure that there's alignment with the brand is something that is very top of mind. Like it has to make sense. I can't just chase every opportunity that's out there when someone wants coffee. It's okay to say no to things that come, you know, our way. And so that's something that I think influences that. But I want to put it to paper. Now that you've mentioned, you said, you know, is there a framework? And I'm very much about my frameworks and philosophies. We have a lot of other things that we instill in the team. And one of the things my husband, I can attribute to him that, you know, he's kind of influenced, but I'm totally on board with, is kind of like the Kobe Bryant Mamba mentality. Like we like to have that influence a lot of our work ethic. And then also this sense of chronic unease, which is really something that, from my risk management perspective, really helps to influence how we do things, like paying attention to how can this go wrong? What are all of the potential failure points? And let's try to resolve those and not just, jump into things without thinking them through. And so having that risk management philosophy and thinking about all of the potential opportunities within those lenses. So I feel like that was a lot of different points, but like I said, I think I want to kind of bring that together into a real framework and one day have an answer to that of yes, we have a 3 keys framework for how we go about pursuing opportunities.
It's an important question to have an answer to. Not necessarily you have to have a framework for it, but it's important to understand when we're in alignment, when we're out of alignment, because it's so easy to overcommit, and it doesn't help the business, and it doesn't help you as a person, it doesn't help the team. So I'm gonna ask you one more question about this. What is one, you said you're all about frameworks and sort of structure for how you do the work that you do. What's one framework that every teammate on your team has to have to be successful on your team?
Oh gosh. I don't know if it's a framework, but I'll say it kind of just, there's a few, just one.
Just one.
But there's a quote that I say a lot and the team hears me say a lot, but it's like, how you do anything is how you do everything. And I think that, if it's putting a label on a bag, or if it's, executing a whole catering event or whatever, how you do just one thing, it really is representative of how you do everything. And so I think that's a good one. A very honorable mention. I got to add this one, but I always kind of say too, you see it, you own it. And what I mean by that is, we always want to equip our team to be problem solvers, not just problem identifiers. And it's if you see something and you feel that it could be done better, or there's something that can be improved upon that, speak up and let us know. And then also we'll support with making that happen. But, we really expect our team to have a part in that solution process. It helps to build their leadership. It helps to get us further as a collective company. But, having that sense of not just identifying problems, but also having the solution in mind and being willing to work towards the solution, work with us on that. So I had to give two. I'm sorry I didn't.
The second one was great. The first one was also great. I love that quote. I think, was it Martha Beck who said that?
I don't know.
It's Martha Beck.
I heard it along somewhere a while back, and it just has stuck with me because I'm yes, it really is something I live by. How you do anything is how you do everything. Yeah.
It's true. I think I also want to just acknowledge another thing you said too, around allowing your team the sort of autonomy to make the decisions and to solve problems. And in order to do that, you and your husband, your co-owner, have to also acknowledge that there's going to be times where they mess something up and they make the wrong decision.
Yep.
And that's okay. And as owners, we have to be okay with that.
Yeah, for sure. I always say self-report it. Something goes wrong, and honestly, the team will tell you. I really cannot recall a single time that anybody has been reprimanded or anything like that on something they self-reported. Now, if something is found out along the way, that's a different story, or if someone tried to cover up something, those are kind of non-negotiables in our team because, integrity is so important to us. Always want to make sure that the team has a customer top of mind. But yeah, I'm always self-report, just tell me you messed up. I own it. I'm always I'm not perfect. I mess up things and I'm folks, I messed this up. I'm sorry. My mindset is always what are we learning from it? What did we gain from this? What did we learn from this? What do we need to fix to prevent someone else from making the similar mistake? And that is my reaction and response every time something is identified as a mishap or misstep. So, yeah.
Place to land. What do I need to fix so that the next person doesn't have to face this? That's a good takeaway. So before we leave, where can folks find your coffee?
Oh, we are Trader Joe's in mostly South Central U.S. We are in currently 120 Walmarts in Texas. We are in all of the Houston area Whole Foods, but you can also find us on threekeyscoffee.com. We also sell our decaf on the Swiss Water Marketplace. We do wholesale for some local Houston places as well. So lots of places you can find Three Keys Coffee, but if you start at our website, threekeyscoffee.com, it'll show you all the places that you can find Three Keys.
Awesome. Kenzel, thank you so much for sharing so much.
This was a joy. Yeah, I enjoy talking to you. So I appreciate the invitation to your platform. This was really great. I love how, a little random LinkedIn conversation, led to this. So I appreciate you having me here.
Agreed. Likewise. Thanks for being here. Be well.
All right. Thanks. Take care. Bye.
Hey, it's Luke, and I'm back one last time with 2 questions. Number 1, did you learn anything from that podcast? Or did you stumble upon a new question or a new thing that maybe you're not sure what the answer is? If either of those 2 are true for you, reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can reach out to me at pomelocoffe and there's a contact tab. Reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what questions you have, or maybe what question was answered in this podcast. As always, be well.